Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call this meeting of Mayor and Council work session to order at 6 o'clock. Oh, correction, 3 o'clock. In reviewing the agenda, there are two items that we're going to table, and not discussion in the work session, and we'll officially table in the voting meeting. We will be tabling B1, revision of Villa Rica development regulations relative to stream buffers. We will be tabling I1, resolution of support for changes to state highway system and acceptance of two roadways. And the third item is C1 will be removed from the agenda, 2021 Downtown Development Authority Board appointment. Does anybody else have any other changes they'd like to make?
What was the one on
I1? We've tabled that a few times.
C1 is a total removal, not a table.
We're going to remove that from the agenda.
Okay, got it.
Move into the first item under governing body. Instruct the city attorney to develop a ordinance change to allow PTVs to travel city streets posted with up to 35-mile-an-hour speed limits. Ms. McPherson, would you like to lead off the discussion?
I don't know that I have a lot more to say about it, other than we started addressing this in January or February of this year. I can't remember for sure which month it was, and we've had some discussion at least several times. And it seemed that we had a pretty strong consensus of people that wanted to move toward making us more of a golf cart community on the council, but so far haven't really made any gestures in that way. We don't have additional paths. It'll be years and years till we have the Gold Nugget Trail and things like that. And this is a way to allow for people who might need to get on a 35-mile-per-hour street for a short period of time to access, only city streets, to access the 25-mile-per-hour ones that are all close to downtown and would allow the different directions of the city. I did request, but did not receive, so it could have just gotten forgotten. Something from staff that might recommend what they thought were the safest routes from the northwest, south, east. That's everything, yeah. Other than that, that's all I've got to say on it. I've said enough before. So.
Mr. Barber, I understand staff recommends denial. Any other comments?
Well, I have to totally agree with Ms. McPherson that everybody south of I-20 has no way to get downtown, and I know of, Maple Valley has a lot of golf carts in it, but they can't put them on the road, so there ought to be a safe way. They travel on 35-mile-an-hour road with the flashers going. There should be a safe way to get those golf carts to this side of the downtown area so that they can also participate, because we did this years ago. We headed in the direction of making this a golf cart community, and it just kind of died away because we were going to do 6-foot wide paths for them to travel on, and that money disappeared. So we need a method now of getting them on to the downtown area. I don't see any other way but to get them on a 35-mile-an-hour road temporarily, just to get them to cross on this side of I-20. That's for that particular area.
David, if would a February return to City Council with a draft, would that work for you?
Oh, sure.
I know the holidays are coming up, so time gets short in late November and December, and then in January we're going to have new council. So, February initial draft return to the City Council.
That's easily doable.
Okay. Any other discussion?
My only comment is, I would like to just see the proposal, before I say yes or no on it. But so I'm in favor of seeing a draft.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing. At this point, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. We get a draft to look at and consider it then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If there's no more discussion and no objection, I'm going to make that consent item 1.
No objection.
Moving on to B2, amendment to section 9.03, section 2, multifamily and single-family attached design standards in public hearing. Ron?
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Temp and City Council members. This item is for our multifamily design standards that we have currently in the ordinance. This would also apply to townhouse developments as well. What we're trying to do here is to not only clean up some of the language inside of this section, but also we took a look at some of the subsections and see how that these regulations are being applied to townhouse developments. And we noticed in some of our previous applications, as well as just in general for reviewing any future applications, that there are some key parts of this section that would not make sense for a townhouse development. I believe we've had some conversations about these subsections previously with some variance requests that have been filed. So we're trying to not only clean up the language, but also take a comprehensive look at this and see, what makes sense for townhouses. If we should be exempt, if we're going to keep it all in the same section, we would like to at least exempt townhomes from certain requirements, such as the orientation of garage doors and things of that nature. So all of this really falls under the scaling and site layout sections, a subsection of 9.03. So there would be quite a big, I guess, change. There's 3 different changes here that's being proposed. Grab those. So subsection 2C would be changing townhomes to allow for them to have orientation of garage doors towards the street. And townhomes with garages may be permitted to orient openings towards the street or the city road. And subsection D will clarify our 20, 30, 40-foot distances between these buildings, and would allow for the community development director to have a little bit more leeway or discretion in determining which of these offsets would actually apply to some of these buildings based off of topographic issues or orientation issues or other types of impractical issues. And the last one is just to change that push and pull from 20 feet to a 5-foot push-pull, which is a variance that was granted to Rock Haven by this council.
The distance between buildings, we will leave that up to the Director of Community Development to determine rather than ask for a variance?
It would be, that would be only for topographic type of situations. If, like we saw in the Rock Haven site, for example, there was a lot of, there were streams that was cutting through, I believe it was the southeast corner of the site, and I knew that they couldn't get some buildings there they could have otherwise gotten closer to 101. But for the vast majority of the site, they would have still had to apply for variances from, because there weren't topographic issues that caused any of those. It was just a lot of units, as we know. So,
Comments from the council?
Yeah, the planning commission voted 2-2. What was their objection?
yes, so they did vote 2-2. Their objection primarily dealt with subsection C and E. So with C, they were concerned with the impact of having townhomes entered to the front versus the rear, because they think it would be an entirely different type of product that the city would be receiving. And they were okay with every developer for townhouses going to the city council and requesting variances from that section. As we know, we haven't received any interest for townhouses, any townhouse developer that has been interested or that would want to have garages facing the rear. I don't think we've ever been approached by any developer. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I don't think we have been approached by any developer that wants to do that. And we don't see any indications in the pipeline of that happening. Of course, people could still do that if they so choose to. But as far as under just regular townhouse developments, it's not in a PUD, As of right now, we are requiring them to enter and exit through the rear.
Ron, I think Fuqua's development proposed rear entry townhomes. Yeah, I heard, pretty
I'll have to
sure.
look back and see. So that might
Okay.
be my correction there that I asked for.
So then, but you're saying even with this, so as it was, the ordinance encouraged rear entry,
It required it.
required it, and so this would make it optional.
That's
essentially.
correct. Mhm. It exempts them from Section C, but that doesn't stop them from being able to still put garages in the rear.
And so if they wanted to do it underneath the current ordinance, they would still need a variance.
That's right.
Okay.
If it was front entry.
Okay.
So the main reason we changed this is because it lumped apartments in with townhouses, right? And there were things that just didn't make sense for both. They're very different. Okay, so I did have a question when it comes down to the footage. I was going to call you, but we missed one another. I missed you,
yeah.
and then my schedule was crazy today. Individual buildings shall be located to avoid more than 2 buildings with parallel orientation, unless offset by more than 5 feet. No, wait a second. It has, I have it written down on my notes here. It had to do with when they could decrease the footage. Let me find my place, sorry. Yeah, okay, so the distance may be further reduced to not less than 20 feet should an exposure be for a bedroom, living room, kitchen, or other such living area. And it says the director will have discretion to determine that. But it said that it could be further reduced at that point, because it originally required 40 feet. It could be reduced to not less than 30 feet for an exposure if it's a bathroom, laundry room, that sort of thing. That it could be further reduced to not less than 20 feet should the exposure be like a bedroom, living room. I'm reading that, am I reading that wrong? Because normally if there's a bedroom, it has to be further away.
Correct, yes. So that is a correction and a revision that we did do. I believe it was sometime last week or so, like a week and a half ago. I submitted it to the packets.
Am I
But it may not. But that is the only change between that I've changed from what you have and what I have. It was that first sentence. So the way that should have read is that this distance may further be reduced to not less than 20 feet should no window opening exist.
There you go. Okay.
No, okay, no.
Yes.
That was what I misunderstood. I go,
Yes.
wait a second, it's
The-
usually further away when it's a bedroom. Okay.
Yes, the 40 is for the bedrooms, yes.
Right, so this,
So I will
We'll
make
read-
that change for the next meeting. Thanks.
Additional comments for staff? This item will require a public hearing in the voting session, so thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
The next item up is Human Resources, the 2022 holidays. Everybody wants to know about that.
That's right. Good afternoon. Okay, so our handbook calls for 12 paid holidays for our employees. And if you'll pull up, yes, the attachment. This is the proposed holiday schedule for 2022. 12 holidays. If it falls on a Saturday, then it's observed on Friday, and if it falls on Sunday, it is observed on Monday. So, New Year's Day, this question comes up, I think, every New Year's. Do we have New Year's Eve off or New Year's Day? The handbook calls for New Year's Day. New Year's Day falls on the weekend this year, so we're observing it January 3rd. So that one is a little different. We're observing it on the 3rd. And then Christmas Eve falls on Saturday, so we're actually observing the 23rd, which is Friday. And Christmas Day falls on Sunday, so we are observing Christmas Day on the 26th.
Question, the day after Thanksgiving, is that always the Friday?
Yes, that should be Friday. I'm sorry about that.
oh, yeah, okay. I missed that one, but I noticed that we had 2 Christmas Eves off.
True. Okay.
So, just a typo, nothing
And I did
really.
want to point out Independence Day. So we don't do fireworks on July 4th. We do them July 3rd. So the staff will be very busy on Sunday, July 3rd, but they will have Monday, July 4th off.
So for our meeting at 6 o'clock, we'll change the day after Thanksgiving to Friday. And-
Correct.
And have Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions for staff? If there's no other questions and no objections, I'd like to make this consent item 2.
No objection.
Next item is a Great Place to Work employee survey. Also from Sarah.
Yes. All right. This is a budgeted item. So we've had several discussions with Great Place to Work Institute. They perform employee trust index surveys. So I don't know if you have ever seen the logo Great Place to Work. That is something companies use for recruiting. You might see it on LinkedIn or on recruiting documents from different businesses. Basically, if 7 out of their 10 employees have said in this survey that they are a great place to work, then they get to use that logo on their recruiting documentation. So I think the big thing is some of the items that we would be able to ask the employees about, how they feel in their job, in their department, in the city as a whole, about respect, communication, about engagement, about leadership behavior. And then we, as the leadership, would receive, and I put some screenshots about what the information would come back to us as. So it would come back different charts and graphs, a heat map so we could see where some of our troubled areas are so that we can actually take some action in those areas to make improvements. Also, they compare us against let me read this, Fortune 100 best companies to work for. So not only is it just looking at ourselves as the city, but how we stand up against the best. So again, we would be able to use that information, see where maybe our problem areas are, and take some steps to improve that. This is $6,800. Again, it was budgeted, asking council to approve that.
One of the issues that I've experienced with employee surveys is some sections of employees are so small, you can look at the survey and determine who said what. So I'm going to guess that there's a mechanism to, if you've got a 2 or 3 person section, that you're going to lump that into something bigger, like City Hall instead of finance.
Right.
And get a feeling for City Hall employees and versus water and sewer and roads, which are much bigger operations.
Yeah, in the past, we've had, even in budget, sometimes we lump those HR, IT, all those really tiny departments into administration. So that's something we could consider doing with this.
Okay, this is a 1 year long subscription. How does that work?
Correct. So our hope is to get it implemented maybe even in January. And then, so we do the survey as fast as possible, and then we would have access to the data for the next year. So that, again, so we can see where the information is or see where our problem areas are, and we can, take action on that.
So you survey each employee, fills out the form?
Yes.
Okay.
And this company's been doing this for 30 years. I think they know more about this than I do as far as getting the employees engaged, because we want to get the most involvement as we can, the most response that we can for our $6,800. So we will look at their expertise in this.
Okay.
I would just ditto the anonymous part, that's so important, because I do remember even in a particular school system in South Florida where people didn't feel like their answers were really anonymous, and they will not participate. And we need it. We need honest feedback that's helpful. So I'm okay with that. I like the idea of getting feedback from the employees.
All right.
If there's no other comments and no objection, I'd like to make this item C3.
No objection.
Sarah, the wellness program through Tanner Healthcare.
All right. So the city moved to partially self-funded insurance back in October of 2017. We have tried to provide affordable coverage for our employees, and over the last couple of years, we've been able to provide zero-pay co-pays for well visits. We're trying to encourage the employees to be proactive with their health. Improved health reduces the times that employees are out sick, reduces the cost of physicians and prescriptions, which affect the plan directly. So the next step that we want to implement is a wellness plan. Now, we've been talking about wellness for a couple years. You know, we did Fitbits a couple years ago, but this is a full wellness and disease management program. So we met with Tanner. Tanner has the capability of doing a wellness program. They do it for their own 3,300 employees or so. Sounds like they also do it for the county. So they manage wellness programs for other entities besides themselves. So they came back to us with a proposal, which was in your packet. Several things that really stuck out to us. They offered wellness lunch and learns. So we thought every other month we could have lunch and learn where we provide lunch, trying to entice the employees to come here from a nurse or a nutrition expert or a wellness expert, and get them to hear about nutrition, exercise during, a company-provided lunch so that we can get them that way, you know, help educate them that way. Number two, we would have access to an employee engagement portal. So this is where they would have access to their, I think their biometric data. I got to find out about that for sure. But they would have access to activities and challenges and other events where they could learn about these lunch and learns and things. There's also data out there that they would have access to read. So if they, you know, in their biometric, if they find out that their cholesterol is high, then they will have access to specific information that they can read about as far as that specific issue is. Also, there are one thing that is an issue in our employee population is diabetes. And so they've come back to us with a proposal for a diabetes prevention program. So they will be able to get the information from, not through me or Tom, you know, we're trying to remove ourselves from having that information. But so when we do biometric screenings in January, the biometric screening company will be able to provide that data to Allied, who can provide the information to Tanner, and tell them who is on the radar as possibly pre-diabetic. And so then they would reach out to those employees. Again, it's taking the city management out of it, but letting Tanner deal directly with the employees who need to go through these pre-diabetic courses. The goal is to prevent diabetes for them. So this would be dietary coaching, coaching them on moderate physical activity. Again, the hope is to change behavior before it becomes diabetes. So there's diabetes prevention, and then there's diabetes self-management. So these are for folks who already have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Again, this information isn't going to come from HR or Tom. This is going to come from Allied directly to Tanner, and they can, they'll be in contact with these employees who have type 2 diabetes. So they'd be meeting with nurses or dietitians who will speak to them about appropriate exercise, healthy eating, appropriate use of medicine, and techniques for dealing with the symptoms of diabetes. So again, you know, the more we can help our employees help themselves, it helps them cost-wise, but it also helps the plan. Lastly, they offer a tobacco cessation program. This is a 4-week program, helps employees combat the physiological and physical side effects of tobacco cessation. So I know that was a lot, but they offer a very comprehensive program. We hope to implement this January 1st if council approves this. And one of the items I'm going to present today is our premiums for next year. So in the past, we've done a differentiated premium based on whether someone was in the wellness program or not, even though that wasn't really a comprehensive wellness program, but this is. So we're not doing a wellness premium and a non-wellness premium, which I'll present here in a few minutes, because we're going to let them earn points. They have to reach a certain level of points in 2022 so that they can get the discounted premium in 2023. So this will be a whole new way of thinking. It's a whole new program, but I'm excited, and I think, I hope the employees will appreciate it also. So we'll see. We won't know until we try, but I hope it'll be effective.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, I don't know that much about diabetes, but why is the workshop just for type 2?
I think, so if you're type 1, and I'm not entirely sure either, but type 1 you're born with, or maybe it's more, thanks, Lisa's nodding. Type 2 is more behavior induced, I think. So it can be controlled through eating and exercise. So that's where we want to help those folks.
There are only two types, type 1 and 2.
I think so.
Did we go looking for this, or did Tanner come to us?
I would say, I actually have to give credit to Tiffany. So she had seen this in motion in Carrollton. And so we reached out to Tanner, and she came and met with us. And I thought everything she was saying was great. So I went and grabbed Tom, and I said, hey, come meet Tanya from Tanner. So that's how that happened.
Okay, so I guess the only other thing, because I'm not against it, I just know sometimes things will look really good on paper, and I just hope that if we're going to do something like this and we're going to spend money on it, that we're going to look to see, is it doing what we intended for it to do? Is it helping people? It does appear that, because people may not ever go look at something that's offered to them, but it looks here that there is a certain reward that's points that are attached to
Right.
that. And I know with people having to pay more for smoking on insurance, it might help to have a program that helps you quit something, you know. Ultimately, it's up to them. That's all. I just want to know that we're getting results,
Sure.
that it does more than look good on paper, that we actually see, you know, people being helped by it and that sort of thing. So I don't know who's going to monitor that. And of course, you've already discussed or covered the fact of then keeping people anonymous, going from Allied to Tanner and keeping it so that people's health stuff is private, which I think is important. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, I think I like the idea that you earn points. The employee has a little skin in the game. It takes some effort to get the discount, and, you know, if they don't want to make the effort, then they won't get the discount. But if they do make an effort in the wellness program, then they're rewarded.
Right.
Can I say one other thing? I just want to be real careful that we don't end up on some sort of slippery slope where we feels like we're micromanaging people's health. And I don't know that I can articulate that really specifically, other than I wouldn't want us to go, oh, well, you get charged more because you have diabetes. I wouldn't want to see us
Right.
go there. I don't mind us encouraging people to be healthier and that sort of thing. I just want to be careful of how much we get into micromanaging people's decisions in healthcare.
Yeah, and we had some discussion about, do we penalize people for not participating or reward people for participating? And she was helpful. She said, you know, positive affirmation. We need to be rewarding people for participating. So, and like Michael said, it's skin in the game. So hopefully they will participate. I mean, we can encourage them to sit in a class, and they can earn a discount if they sit through so many classes, but I can't make them change how they eat or physical activity.
Any additional? If there's no objection, I'd like to make this consent item 4.
No objection.
Okay, Sarah, to approve a third-party administrator agreement for our partially self-funded medical insurance.
Okay, it's that time again. So as we were just talking about, we went partially self-funded in 2017. So what we call it partially because we have some other insurances that protect us on an individual level, but also at an aggregate level. But let me back up. The mayor asked that we have our broker quote us what it would cost to go back fully funded. So that first section you can see, he reached out to Aetna, Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, Humana, United Healthcare. 3 of them declined to quote, but Cigna came back with a 37.8% increase, and Humana came back with a 23.7% increase. So obviously that was a no. Then he looked at several different stop-loss carriers in that second box there. So stop-loss is that additional layer of insurance we were talking about. Again, it's on an individual basis, so we can only be hit with so much expense by a certain individual, but also from an aggregate. So our current carrier came back with the lowest renewal, which was, all things considered, a 5.4% increase. Now, if you'll keep scrolling, that was for a 12-month renewal. But one thing we talked to Wendell about was is it possible to switch to an October 1 to September 30 plan for our insurance, since that's our fiscal year now? Basically, long story short, the answer was yes, and it actually came back with an even lower bid than what we saw on the front page. So all that being said, doing a 9-month plan year, so basically we'll be back this summer to do this again, and we'll have open enrollment again probably in August. So we're about to have open enrollment actually on Monday, and we'll have it again soon. But in the time being, all we have is a 50-cent increase per month per employee for the third-party administration. So for our TPA, the third-party administrator, a 50-cent increase per employee per month. However, that's just one of their fees. There is also another fee based on, this is where the actuaries come in and see where our risk is, and that actually went down. So the premiums I'm going to present to you, we actually were able to go down almost 1% for the employees. So asking for y'all to authorize Tom to sign the third-party agreements for the plan year effective January 1st.
Questions for staff?
So our current one came back lower, but you said they came back lower when we wanted to make it a 9-month. Well, that would be lower anyway, because we're just going 9 months, right?
Correct.
But is it actually lower on the annual? It's just lower because we're only doing 9 months.
Correct. Yeah, and we went back and forth. Wouldn't it
Okay.
be a little higher, aren't they? But their risk period is lower. You know, it's only 9
Sure.
months of risk, not 12
Right.
months of risk.
Yeah,
So.
okay, well, that makes sense, okay.
If there's no further discussion and no objection, I'd like to make this consent item 5.
No objection.
Last one, Sarah. 2022 health insurance premium rates.
Y'all haven't had me stand up here this long in a while. All right. So this goes along with the benefit premiums we've been talking about. So first, I'll talk about medical. Can you scroll up a little bit? Okay, so this shows, again, we used to have 4 categories: medical with wellness, medical without wellness, tobacco with wellness, tobacco not with wellness. This year, we are only doing tobacco and non-tobacco, because we're going to let them earn the points for wellness, and we'll implement that in 2023. So the first column shows you the 2021 numbers compared to the 2022 numbers, and it is, like I said, almost a 1% decrease, which isn't a ton, but it is something. We weren't able to give the employees a raise this year, so I think this at least gives them something that they'll see monthly, or actually biweekly. And then if you scroll on down, the other premiums, so we had actually locked in with Mutual of Omaha for all of our ancillary rates till 2023. So none of them changed except dental. Dental increased by 4%. So you can see employee only went from $1.61 to $1.67. Employee family went from $11.42 to $11.87.
So if our risk went down according to the actuaries, then we had a good year.
Not necessarily. Wendell's been telling us 1 out of every 5 years is a bad year. So budget-wise, it hasn't looked as pretty. However, we changed TPAs, and I think that's part of it. So we went from HealthScope to Allied, and things have been really good with Allied. I hope everyone else would say that. It seems like they've kind of calmed down the noise that we were having before. They've been very responsive. When we met with Wendell, 4 or 5 months ago, what we saw was the HealthScope turnaround was taking so long. And so unfortunately this fiscal year that we just ended had a lot of the HealthScope stuff in it, and now the Allied. So the HealthScope being late and then the Allied being on time. So unfortunately that's what's affected our bottom line for that.
Any other questions?
I'm looking at the second chart, the one that gives you the 30% rate. What is that rate? 30%
Yes. If
and
you'll-
38%?
Can you flip to this one, Teresa? So this is something we've been doing for, 4 years now. We calculate what the premiums, the total premiums would be if you look at the far right column. That is a total monthly premium. Yes. So if you look back at the rate that Danny was referring to, we asked the employee to contribute 5% of that. So we take the total monthly premium, multiply that by 5%, and that's how much the employee pays. Now, when they add their spouse or children or their family, then they pay that 5% of the single premium and then 30% of anything additional. But then the tobacco piece is higher. If it's employee only, they pay 19% of that total monthly premium and 38% of the other.
So that if you're an employee with a family, you have to pay the 5% and the 30%.
Yes, 30% of the difference. Mhm.
Any further questions? If there's no objection, I'd like to make this item consent 6.
No objection.
Thank you.
The next item is information technology with Jim Chambers. Move from on-site Microsoft Exchange to Microsoft Cloud 365.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. This is to move from an on-prem Exchange server to Office 365, just to get it out into the cloud. Because right now, the way the updates work for Microsoft is they're pushed out, well, as needed and more reactive than proactive. But as far as their cloud services go, of course, that's where they want everybody to go. So that's where all the pressure is, and that's where they have everything at. For firewalls, they have that as well. They have everything secured. So whereas right now we've seen a vulnerability in the past couple weeks that has got me believing more in this than I'll say I ever have.
Other than the vulnerability, have they priced it in a manner that makes it enticing?
It's a lot more pleasant to look at than it was a few years ago. And this is a big reason why I haven't pushed it so hard, is because of the savings. But the price is a lot better than it was.
Questions for staff? I think all of us understand the downfall of not being technically secure in your systems. We've seen too much happen, so it's pretty much a no-brainer for me. If there's no more,
Wait a minute. You purchased 150 of these licenses. Why that number?
Well, we have about 178 accounts. That's the other thing that we're going to be doing as well. We're going to be reducing the number of accounts that access our network, because for each account that we have on our Active Directory, that's another liability that we have sitting out there. So for each account that we're able to limit, that they're just checking email on their phone, or they have an account but they're not checking email at all. Why do they have it? Because if they get breached, if there's a vulnerability or compromise there, we may not know it for several weeks until they finally go and check their phone and say, hey, I don't remember sending these emails. Hey, I don't remember getting these emails. So we're gonna limit the accounts to those that are truly using email on a daily basis.
This is over my head.
Well, I'm looking for the words to explain it to you guys, and I'm really struggling with that. I can give you a very in-depth technical reason.
Right, and I know, but what I do understand, because I read enough articles and watch enough news, is to see what happens when breaches occur. So what happened to Atlanta, we've heard of numerous other cities, we've heard of ransom and the money, and so I have to trust you, Tom, and you to know what we have to do to protect ourselves in the IT area, because this is like Greek to me, right?
We
So
had a pretty good scare.
That's why we have you, because I don't know this stuff except that the risk, that's it.
And I've put Office 365 on the budget before, and I've not fought hard for it. Granted, if hindsight being 2020, I would have fought a heck of a lot harder back at budget time for it then. But I've saved us money here as long as I can. But it's definitely time to make the move, just for the simple fact that Microsoft does not push updates out for Exchange on premise as much, and kind of like Apple, the same reason Apple, whenever they push out an update for your iPhone, and all of a sudden, hey, my iPhone doesn't work as well. Well, that's because they want you to go buy a new one. Well, Microsoft's in the money-making business. They want you to come and get on their subscription service. And this is a strong way of making it happen.
And we're going to go hide in the cloud, right?
And they can worry about the backups, they can worry about the security, and maybe I can sleep at night.
If we're reducing the number of accounts, the employees that no longer have access will still have some mechanism for their training that they're doing online and the wellness program that we just discussed and things. They'll do that through a shared access point, or
Their supervisor will give them updates as far as, what's going on within the city, like for our VR distribution, stuff like that. But if they need an email, but if they're not sitting behind a computer and able to change their passwords regularly and meet those security protocols, then when they're onboarding, we'll give them maybe a Gmail account or something like that if they don't already have one.
further questions for staff? If there's no objection, I'd like to make this item consent 7.
No objection.
Jim, purchase of a Barracuda Cloud Gen X subscription.
Yes, sir. And this is for us to basically monitor outbound traffic. You always hear about the firewalls and that not catching everything coming inbound.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is to monitor what's going and leaving us outbound. Right now, there hasn't been much of a press to do that, but with things that just happened with us possibly sending out spam emails and stuff like that, there's more of a need for this, and you have to do it at more of a granular level. Like right now, what we have, we can go in there and we can block ports, but unless you know what port you're looking for, you could be blocking individual ports for days because there's several 100,000 of them out there. Whereas this, we can just sit there and say, hey, we want to block X traffic, cut it off, or we want to monitor it and see what's happening on this traffic and where it's going, what IP addresses it's going to, what countries it's going to, and this gives us that ability to do that. And that also replaces our VPN access as well. Right now we use it's an older antiquated VPN. It's I'm sure the people that use VPN here, they'll tell you it's very slow. This will help us in that area as well.
Does this use whitelist or blacklist technology?
Well, that's spam filtering. So no, this is more all hands on, where you sit there and you select. You can select it by port. You can go that way, or you can select it by traffic itself.
Questions for staff? If there's no objection,
Wait a minute, it's not a budgeted item. So we're taking this out of the general fund.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure Sarah will figure out where it comes from. Oh, yes.
They told me they would.
If there's no objection, I'd like to make this consent item 8.
None.
Thank you.
Next item is Tracy Ivy, request for an approval of Premier Outdoor Movies to display our drive-in movie.
Good afternoon. We are going to show a drive-in movie at the V-Plex on November the 19th, and we are just asking for your support for the contract in the amount of $3,329. The purpose is to continue the department's Family Fun Initiative by adding a drive-in movie night featuring, we were going to play Raya and the Last Dragon, however, we're going to have to choose another movie. That movie has been blacklisted during the holiday month, so we'll pick another PG-rated movie. The event will be held, as I said, on November the 19th at the V-Plex. The movie will be shown on a large 30 by 17 portable screen, and attendees will watch from within their vehicles with a sound coming through a signal on their car radios. So we look forward to this. I know the park used to do movie nights, and we're going to hopefully resurrect that because it was a lot of fun. Folks have hit our Facebook page a lot, asking about it and showing a lot of interest, so this is something that we would like to continue moving forward. We will secure the license with Swank. Swank provides movies and movie licensing to parks, recreation centers, companies, colleges, K through 12 schools, public libraries, and dozens of other entities that want to show films legally on their property using a drive-up format. So we have to do that according to the Federal Copyright Act. Copyrighted materials like movies can only be used for public performance if they're properly licensed. So the impact, obviously, is allowing families to enjoy a fun-filled evening in our parks. hopefully before the weather turns too drastically cold and they can't get out and still throw the football around or maybe even tailgate a little bit before the movie. So we would love to invite you guys out with your families and friends and have a good time.
What time?
It'll start at 6:30.
And it is a free event.
Yes, sir. And we'll have concessions available, and parking, we'll assist you with your parking because we're going to space folks around based on the type of vehicle, and keeping conscientious with the safe distance from people to people. So it's going to be a good night.
How many can we accommodate in the parking lot?
We're thinking close to 75 vehicles. We're going to do it in the football field parking lot. That's a large lot, and the movie is quite big. So if we have to go across the street into the grassy area, we can expand, and so we think we'll have a good crowd.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is kind of a cool idea. I remember we talked about that with Tom during the pandemic. I really wanted to see us pull it off. You know, we were talking about doing outdoor movie because people couldn't go almost anywhere, right? All our concerts were canceled and a lot of other activities. Now, this one will be in the parking lot, and I think we talked even then maybe about $5 a car or something, so I don't know if that's something you want to consider in the future, or if you're also still considering the way we used to do it, although I think this is super cool because drive-ins are, well, there's something sentimental about it, but it's fun. It's fun for families, because you can kind of do that tailgating, you've got refreshments, everything else. Is doing them still at the mill now and then. I don't know if that's still something you're considering in the future, or you're going to do this once or twice a year, or what the plan is long term.
Well, we'll see what
how it goes.
We'll see what the turnout is on this and what kind of feedback we get. We always like to ask for that, and we'll be doing that face to face with folks that we know and new people that we don't know. But absolutely, we could do this quarterly. We could certainly join efforts with Janet over at the mill and do some things. In fact, we did the Power Wheels event last Sunday, and now we're thinking about, okay, how can we make this bigger? So we thought about piggybacking on one of her events to put them down Broad Street. Mm-hmm. So certainly looking forward to how we can expand this activity and interest level.
Okay, I regret to say I think I'm going to miss it, and I really did want to do this. I thought this would be so much fun to bring the grandkids to. But the only other thing I wanted to ask about, I was reading through, all the requirements and the responsibility of the customer, and I assume y'all have thoroughly read through that as far as lighting, certain lights that have to be out, and
Yes,
okay,
yes,
that's
ma'am.
all. As long as somebody thoroughly looked
we
at that,
did.
so we're ready.
We did, and we met with Premier on site. We just didn't do it over the phone and through email. We actually had them come out, and we paid a little extra fee for them to come out on site, so we talked about all those issues.
Okay, all right.
Okay, you said The Last Dragon was blacklisted?
The movie that we chose was blacklisted, and for some reason, I guess it's such a popular, maybe new and popular, that they're not showing it for November and December, and they'll resume showing it in this format in January.
What's the movie they'll be showing first? The one listed here?
No, this was one we had selected, but we will have to pick a new title.
Oh, you don't have a new one yet?
No, sir.
Okay.
We just found this out, so it was kind of surprising to me that, wow, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Buy those tickets to Disney or that pass, but you can't use it on
Certain
this
day.
time and this month and this holiday, and so it's like blacked out for that time.
Yeah, so we'll pick another good movie.
Additional questions for staff? If there's no objection, I'd like to make this item consent 9.
No objection.
Thank you.
Bobby Elliott, purchase of 6 new 2022 police pursuit vehicles. Nope, Charlie Davis. No? Chief. Well, you were hiding back there, but you didn't get away.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is the request, pretty much the same request where we buy cars, and we're gonna go over the equipment, and we're gonna go over the camera systems and all that. So the first one is to purchase the 6 new 2022 Ford Explorer police utility vehicles. We had several locations bid. Our local representative, Don Rich Ford, was the low bidder, and it came out to being $205,518. So we ask that you allow us to buy those cars.
This is pretty much an annual thing because cars get old and need to be replaced before they become so bad you can't count on them.
Correct.
So, and this is a budgeted item.
This is a budgeted item, yeah.
And these are fully equipped. Is that true?
No, sir. These are just the cars.
Just the cars?
Yes, sir. And then we're going over the equipment after this.
Chief, did I also read, these are the ones that tend to be passed to the other departments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We're as we get new cars, we pass on the older cars to other departments that are still usable. I mean, some of the cars, you know, if they've been wrecked or like obviously Chase's car, the one that was shot, you know, it's not going anywhere. But cars that are usable, we do pass down unless Nick or Charlie them decide it's too much maintenance. But most time we do pass them down. Yes, ma'am.
Additional questions for staff? If there's no objection, I'd like to make this item consent 10.
No objection.
I have no objection, sir.
Don't go too far, you'll be back. So, Nick, purchase of LED bulbs and fixtures for all city facilities.
Yes, sir. This is a budgeted item. In the past, staff was purchasing bulbs and lamps to retrofit all fluorescent or CFL light fixtures due to, you know, LEDs being energy efficient and they last quite a bit longer than just a normal fluorescent bulb. So instead of just buying a few, you know, orders at a time, we'd like to go ahead and purchase what it would take to supply all of the occupied and manned facilities with bulbs enough to replace all of them and retrofit all the light fixtures. We do want to not only just retrofit fixtures, but some of the office spaces, they came out with a new flat panel LED that actually has, you can change the lumen or the Kelvin, so you can get, you know, some people don't like a bright light in their office, and they're very reasonable in price as well, very competitive. So the bulbs themselves are actually comparable or comparable to a fluorescent bulb now that they've been developed and been manufactured for a while. So the amount to purchase all these bulbs and material would be $31,362.36. Voss Lighting is a state contract holder, and so we're getting a really competitive rate.
My question is, are you going to replace the bulbs as they burn out? You're not just going to go in and start replacing?
Those are going to be obviously priority, but we're on rainy days and during our winter project list, when things start slowing down with like the grounds department, we kind of team up and start knocking out some bigger projects, and this would be part of those projects.
So you are going to replace ones that are still working? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Generally, it's more efficient to come in and relamp rather than come back 5 times to change individual bulbs.
Preventative, yes.
Unless it's at home like us, because we only have a few. I didn't have a question, but thought it was interesting. You said you can change the lumens, lowered, and the only reason I thought that was kind of cool is I recently was listening to some people with medical issues or
Right.
sometimes headache issues, and it makes a difference with the lighting. So I like that we can do that.
I've heard a lot of that from staff is
Okay.
that it will give them headaches. Like these are 4,000 K lights, and they are bright. We want it bright in here, but somebody that's working 8 hours a day at their computer might not want,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay, well,
that
good.
bright of a light.
I imagine the LEDs that we're looking at are probably not dimmable. So that's why you're looking
Some
for
of them are. Like the flat panels, obviously are dimmable. They actually have a new bulb now that you can dim it as well. You can go from 5,000 K all the way down to 2,500, which is kind of like a yellow hue. But the panels would be, but not the bulbs. The bulbs are going to be mainly, you know, big spaces and not just office space. The LED bulbs, as far as energy efficiency goes, the 4,000 lumen standard that we kind of use around the facility uses about 14 to 20 watts per bulb. A regular fluorescent uses 23 to 30. So you have cost savings in energy. And then the lamp lights, CFLs, they usually last about 10,000 hours, and the LEDs go anywhere from, or last anywhere from 50 to 100,000 hours. So it makes sense.
And it saves the labor of relamping.
Yes, it does. Do it once.
Additional questions for staff?
No, I recently bought some of these LED bulbs. I had the chandelier type, 100 watt, use 7 watts, so
Wow.
they're
that's
quite
great.
efficient.
Yeah, they are.
If there's no objection, I'd like to make this item consent 11.
Thank
No
you.
objection.
Delegation. Captain, purchase of a 2022 Ford Escape for use by the Criminal Investigations Division.
Yes, sir. The vehicle we want to replace is a 2008 Ford Taurus. It's, I'm not sure of the miles. It's well over 100,000 miles. The vehicle basically is almost 14 years old. So we're wanting to replace this vehicle to give us a more reliable vehicle. There was Officer Gordy's vehicle during the shootout. We got an insurance settlement on that, so we're using that. We want to use that money to purchase this vehicle and the equipment to go with it. I don't know if there's other questions I can answer or not.
Questions for the captain?
So the insurance was more than enough to cover this vehicle.
It was. The insurance settlement that we got from the vehicle was for $24,777. Actually, the total cost of this project with the lights and siren included will be $23,053. So we actually I have a little bit left over.
Okay.
If there's no further discussion, I'd like to make this item consent 12.
No objection.
Equip 6 requested police explorers with Motorola in-car emergency band radios.
This is to put the radios in the cars. Obviously, we have the patrol cars. We're going to purchase those. We'll put the radios. We use Metropolitan Communications to do this, sole source, because they're the ones that work on all of our cars. So.
And these radios will be able to communicate with GSP, Carroll County, Douglas County.
The Douglas County part, we're still getting done, but everybody else, yes, sir. Everybody else local. Mm-hmm.
Questions for the chief? Hearing none, I'd like to make this item consent 13.
No objection.
Equip 6 patrol explorers with all necessary emergency equipment.
This is for the cage, the bumper guard, not the cameras, but the blue lights, everything else that goes in the car. This will go through Metropolitan too, where they buy everything and then put it in right there. So we don't have to go price it with these people, price it with these people. They do it all as a package for us now.
I'm hearing that supply chain issues are rampant. Do you anticipate any issues with that?
Some of the items, yes, sir, including the cars, to be honest. We were told we'll get them within the 6 to 12 weeks, but very seldom does that happen realistically with the, like you said, the supply chain stuff. So we're hoping, but we don't know.
Questions for the chief? Hearing none, I'd like to make this consent 14 if there's no objection.
No objection.
Equip 6 requested patrol explorers with both in-car cameras and body-worn cameras.
we have a sole source with the WatchGuard company. That's where we get our camera systems from. They will be shipped directly to Metropolitan. Metropolitan, will install those just like they do all the other equipment. Each car has 4 different angles pretty much that's on video. You have the body cam, you have the front view, the back view, and then the back seat view. So, I mean, this is just is mainly so when people say our guys do something wrong or inappropriate, we've got it on camera to show that it didn't happen, or if it did happen, we address it and we fix it. Yes,
Question?
ma'am.
Okay, so this is all to go with the 6 cars
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we're replacing, so it's not for new officers. My question is, what happens to the body cams that were being used and the cameras that are in the decommissioned vehicles? They
We-
don't transfer over, or they're, what's?
Some of them are able to, some of them aren't. But this is for the new cars. As they, as we have others break or whatever, we replace them with those. So we keep these at Metropolitan or here, either one. And if we need them, we can use them. But we do replace the new cars with new systems.
Okay, so the other ones sit on the shelf in case you need them, is that what I
Or
understand?
we may use them for parts or things like that. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
all righty.
But we don't just get rid of them. We do keep them to make sure.
They don't go on, what is the Gov thing?
Gov
they
deals,
say?
unless
Gov deals.
unless they're not usable anymore, but yeah.
okay.
Any further questions for the chief? Hearing none, I'd like to make this item consent 15 if there's no objection.
None.
Thank you.
The next item is I-2, North Plant modifications to include aerator, belt press, and disc filter piping installation. Pete?
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This item is to engage construction company to include the removal and installation of the belt press and the other equipment that you just mentioned. We had 4 people show up at the pre-bid conference, but we only received 1 bid. Paul Simonton, the engineer representing us, had estimated a cost of $600,000, so we thought that this number was pretty compatible to what his estimate was. So if you'll recall, you had approved us to purchase the aerator, the belt press ahead of time because of the lag time in trying to get this equipment here. So now this bid was put out to secure a contractor to do the removal and the installation of this equipment. And this is a budgeted item.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, did you contact these 3 that didn't bid to find out why so many didn't bid?
Yes, sir. We only got 2 responses out of the 3, the 3 that did not bid. And one company won a bid right after the pre-construction meeting, and then they decided that they were going to do the other project. The other company claimed that this was not a good fit for them in their time schedule. Another thing that's a little different with this is that it all doesn't happen at one time. When some of the equipment comes in, they'll install this piece and then the other piece and that sort of thing. So it's kind of spread out over a period of time, and I think maybe that's why that company, it wasn't attractive to them.
There's additional mobilization costs?
Yes, sir.
And you're comfortable with IHC construction?
Yes, sir.
Have we used them before?
I haven't personally, but Paul Simonton is familiar with them.
Additional questions for staff? Hearing none, I would like to make this item consent 16 if there's no objection.
None.
The next item is a request to engage Simonton Engineering, formerly PC Simonton and Associates, for engineering services for the North Plant modifications.
So this request is to amend an existing agreement with Simonton Engineering to do the further design, construction oversight, that sort of thing with the project going on at the North Plant. And this was a budget item as well.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, this is the change to the requirement, so why was it this brought up in the beginning?
Sir, I don't understand the question.
Okay, you say this is,
Yes, this is an amendment to an existing contract that we have with Simonton Engineering.
okay, it's a change to the existing contract. What brought this up that wasn't known in the beginning?
Well, as the workload for Paul, he's worked on several things for us, has expanded, we've had to include this because we didn't have money in there for the scope of the North Plant going forward, because we just discovered what the scope is going forward right
Oh,
now.
Additional requirements?
Yes, sir.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make this item consent 17.
None.
Pete, request to engage with Ovio USA for the purchase of a mechanical aerator for the North Plant.
Okay, I've gotten out of order here, but I can speak to that. If you'll recall again, at the North Plant, you've already approved one aerator. And as we've looked at the options that we may select going forward for the North Plant, as far as improvements to continue it as a wastewater plant or as a repumping station, and we still have to keep it operational in the interim. It's going to require 2 aerators. Well, the aerator was kind of an emergency situation on the one that you approved, and we wanted to get that ordered as quick as possible. And then Murphy's Law hit, which the second aerator is just really not repairable anymore, and it's barely hanging in there. So we wanted to get a second aerator, which would be needed anyway in the future, and it would be a cost savings to us. They told us that if we didn't get it soon, that the cost was going to go up in the not too distant future. So I think the increase that they quoted was another $16,000. So we're fighting these kind of price increases constantly and delays.
The cover sheet mentions that the previous aerator purchase had a 10-month lead time. What's the lead time on a whole new aerator?
It's about the same thing.
About the same still.
Mhm.
Questions for staff? Hearing none, I'd like to make this item consent 18 if there's no objection.
None.
The next item is purchase of a Hydra stop valve inspection and insertion valves.
Okay, this request for this particular type of equipment is sorely needed by our distribution crew. When we have emergency situations where we have a line break, we go out there. In a perfect world, you go out and you go down the road a little bit, isolate the valve, go down the road, isolate the valve, cut off the water, and do effective repair, and minimal impact to the public. We have so many places in town that have long runs where there are no valves associated. So this request is really twofold. One, for emergency replacement, so we can effect a repair without disrupting the public, but then also as a program going forward to identify where we need to put in isolation valves where they do not exist. We can do this in-house. So that's the request for this equipment, and there's a certain number of inserter valves that come with this equipment. So like about 60% of this cost includes valves. When we have a company come in, we're at the mercy of their schedule when they can show up. And the rough cost has been about $1,000 per inch on the valve. So if it's a 4-inch valve, it's a $4,000 cost, 6-inch, $6,000 and so forth. So it gets costly. And we'd like to have our folks trained in-house to be able to do it in a timely manner. It also will avoid boil water advisories and outages for people.
That was my question. I'm assuming this would come into play in that sort of thing. We wouldn't be probably shutting off large amounts of people if we could isolate it when we have a break or leak. Does that sound?
Yes, because the inserter part of that is you're actually inserting a valve under pressure, so you don't have to cut off the water supply to do the repair.
That makes sense, and it's budgeted.
How many valves, you say some valves come with it? How many?
About 9 or 10 with this, in various sizes. This will allow us to do a range of 4 to 12-inch valves.
Additional questions for staff?
And you can insert these valves with the line under pressure?
Yes, sir.
That's interesting. Very good.
If there's no further discussion, I'd like to make this consent 19 if there's no objection.
None.
Request to engage with Vaughn Company for the pump purchase servicing of the West Plant Water Reclamation Facility.
Yes, this request is to replace our number 3 influent pump at the West Plant, wastewater plant. It has come to the end of its useful life, and the crazy thing is the repair cost exceeds the cost of a new one. So, and that's why the request for a new one.
Is this one of those items that in the future we'll look at having one on a shelf kind of thing?
Yes.
Questions for staff? Hearing none, I'd like to make this item consent 20 if there's no objection.
None.
The last one under utilities is request permission to enter into a temporary water agreement to purchase water for 30 days with the Douglasville, Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority for water system testing.
Okay. Again, if you'll recall, we do have an existing contract with Douglasville, Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority. We haven't activated it. We haven't purchased any water in a long time. I reached out to Gil Sherrouse, the executive director, told him that we had done upgrades to the Connors Road booster pump station, and we need to go ahead and do the startup on that station. And while we're doing the startup on the station and seeing how that's going to affect our ability to fill the Mirror Lake tank and the hydraulics associated with that refit, we also want to expand that to exercising the water valves at our other connections with Douglas County at Highway 78 and the other one on Highway 61. We've lost the institutional knowledge. We don't know how that'll affect our system, but that's why the window of 30 days. And I know in your information packet, there's a range of 300,000 to 500,000 gallons a day. So we'll probably vacillate between that number depending on what the activity is. And that way we'll know exactly what we've got, hopefully.
I seem to recall we replaced a butterfly valve out there that we had never been used in so long it needed to be replaced.
Yes, sir. We've got a similar situation in the Highway 61 vault, and so we're going to have to go out there and probably manually operate that to do this exercise, but it's needed. We need to have this as an emergency connection. If nothing else, we need to know what to anticipate and expect if we ever have to do that.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, mine is directed to Mr. Mecklen, have you reviewed this agreement?
I have.
Okay, no
I
problem.
didn't have any problem with it.
Okay.
And it's in full compliance with our current agreement.
It is.
If there's no other questions for staff and no objection, I'd like to make this item consent 21.
None.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Jennifer, fiscal year 2022 budget amendments, number 3 through 13.
Good afternoon. Yes, the first one is in regards to the police received a $1,000 donation. So we want to increase revenues by $1,000 and increase their police supplies. The second budget amendment is in regards to what Captain Shaddix brought before you earlier regarding the SID replacement vehicle and using the insurance proceeds to cover that vehicle purchase and equipment. And then the last amendment is the Public Safety Officials and First Responders Supplement Grant. I believe that I brought this before y'all at the last meeting to accept the terms and conditions through the ARPA funding. It's an additional grant or additional funding through the governor's office to pay $1,000 to the law enforcement officials. I've worked with Hunter in regarding getting the list. We've submitted it or uploaded it to the portal, and now we're just waiting on the money to come into our general fund. And this would be taking care of the budget amendment to accept those funds.
And those funds are a one-time payment.
Yes, sir.
Questions for Jennifer?
Nope.
If there's no further questions and no objection, I'd like to make this item consent number 22.
No objection.
Well, my only question, Mayor Pro Tem, we usually do the budget amendments in the regular session. Is there any reason why we're changing that up? I mean, I don't mind it. I think it's a good idea if we can, but we've always done them in the regular session,
David?
so.
Yeah, I think we probably have done the budget amendments actually in the open meetings, so.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. We'll hear that again, Jennifer.
I don't, I mean, if we can do it in the,
I think on a budget amendment that is something that should be done, not just on a consent agenda.
okay. Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, I didn't mean to slow your roll.
Now, Mr. Barber, approve a proposal by Falcon Engineering to evaluate land for a second industrial park.
So I came to you months and months ago with a dollar figure in mind, but not a vendor to perform this task. And we were going to accomplish this in conjunction with Carol Tomorrow. And I was working with JR on this, but due to his departure, it falls back on us. And so I've reached out to Falcon. They've given me a proposal. And what we're hoping, we're looking at 2 pieces of land. We could only get permission to get on one of them, but it's the worst of the 2 as far as topography. And so we think that we'll be able to conservatively take the yield results of this piece and apply them to the second piece and have an idea of how much usable land we have. And so I'd like for you to authorize Falcon to get going, and then there's multiple pieces to this, so the survey and some geotesting. And so we're going to be doing wetland delineation and all that stuff to get a better idea of what exactly is suitable to be padded out for an industrial building.
How much can actually be developed? Questions for the city manager?
I guess I don't really understand why we aren't allowed, they wouldn't allow us to look on the other piece of land if we're interested in purchasing it.
He told us that well, first of all, he lives there. But he doesn't want us on there until he has a solid contract.
Does that mean you're buying something you can't see?
No, it means we're going to leave him alone and deal with the first parcel, and then we'll go back to him later.
Okay, so here's my question that popped in my head first. Okay, so we were going to work through Carroll tomorrow. We had a 5-year contract. Is that done or is it done in December?
It was
I knew it was imminent. It was
end of 20,
ended, okay, done.
and it's not in this budget.
Okay, fine. Nonetheless, we did make a significant investment in Carroll tomorrow. Okay, so he left. There's no one at Carroll tomorrow that,
He hasn't been replaced yet.
so they can't supply any help.
I mean, I haven't asked them to
Well, I just did.
because they haven't replaced him, so.
Yeah, I guess I just thought that maybe we had certain expectations of getting help through Carroll tomorrow that would
No,
come
I
with the,
mean, that was more just a personal working relationship between me and JR.
But we're not supplying money to Carroll tomorrow in this budget. So why should they help us?
I don't know. Can I turn my mic off?
Additional questions for the city manager? Hearing none, I'd like to make this consent item 22 if there's no objection.
No objection.
We've come to the portion of public comments. For public comments, please keep your comments on a professional level. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. If you deviate from this protocol, you will receive a warning from the chair. If you deviate a second time, you will be asked to leave the premises for the evening. Only one person speaking at a time, and please no comments from the audience. Jody, please state your name and address for the record.
Jody Mount, 214 Rockmart Road, here in Villa Rica. I'm very concerned about safety of the people riding in the golf carts if this ordinance makes it on Rockmart Road, because it is 35. Some of it's 30, one little piece is 25. But we have lost a dog on there. My next door neighbors just recently, with their 4 little children, lost a cat. And that is traumatic, you guys. And I don't know if I can handle an accident involving people. That traffic on there is horrendous. There are way too many trucks, and then the cars go way, way too fast on there. There's, it would not be safe at all. The successful and safe golf cart communities that I'm aware of were planned. Mirror Lake was planned. Peachtree City's planned. You know, I think a lot more needs to be done before we just turn out. I love that idea too, because one, I'm thinking if we have golf cart paths, we're gonna have safer walking paths. You know, and I think that needs to be our focus before golf carts. I've said this before. You know, there's very few of us that shouldn't be out walking. Now, I understand Mr. Carter's wanting people coming from south of I-20, and I don't know because I'm not over there that much, but the little bit I have been over there, I cannot imagine how that can happen safely. I can't. So, but I would invite any council member that wants to come sit on my porch. I will serve you herbal teas from my garden, and you can sit there and you can watch the traffic, because I'm not exaggerating this, guys. I'm not. My other concern is on the townhomes, the rear entry thing. I like that idea a lot. I don't like the proposed changes. And I'm really concerned about the Dogwood townhomes, where nothing has happened on that 5-acre parcel there yet. But that, you know, one of the things that was to try to help us as neighbors feel better was that the parking would be in the back. So if we add this, does that mean that plan's off, that requirement's off the table on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make use of public comments? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section part of the meeting and go back through the consent agenda. Consent item 1 is governing body instructs city attorney to develop an ordinance to ordinance change to allow PTVs to travel city streets posted with up to 35-mile-an-hour speed limits. Consent item 2 is Human Resources 2022 holidays. Consent item 3, Great Place to Work employee survey. Consent item 4, Wellness program through Tanner Healthcare. Consent item 5, to approve a third-party administrator agreement for partially self-funded medical insurance. Consent item 6, 2022 health insurance premium rates. Consent item 7, move from on-site Microsoft Exchange to Microsoft Cloud 365. Consent number 8, purchase of Barracuda Cloud Gen X subscription. Consent number 9, request for approval of Premier Outdoor Movies to display Our Drive-In movie. Consent number 10, purchase of 6 new 2022 police pursuit vehicles. Consent number 11, purchase of LED bulbs and fixtures for all city facilities. Consent number 12, purchase of a 2022 Ford Escape for use by the Criminal Investigations Division. Consent 13, equip 6 requested patrol explorers with Motorola in-car emergency band radios. Consent 14, equip 6 patrol explorers with all necessary emergency equipment. Consent number 15, equip 6 requested patrol explorers with both in-car cameras and body-worn cameras. Consent number 16, north plant modifications to include aerator, belt press, and disc filter piping installation. Consent number 17, request to engage Simonton Engineering, formerly PC Simonton and Associates, Inc., for engineering services for the north plant modifications. Consent number 18, request to engage OVO USA for the purchase of a mechanical aerator for the north plant. Consent number 19, purchase of a Hydra stop valve inspection and insertion valves. Consent number 20, request to engage with the Vaughn Company for the pump purchase servicing at the West Plant Water Reclamation Facility. Consent number 21, to request permission to enter into a temporary water agreement to purchase water for 30 days with the Douglasville, Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority for water system testing. And consent number 22, approve a proposal by Falcon Engineering to evaluate land for a second industrial park. Does anyone have anything different? And we will adjourn this meeting.